First of all, what does it mean to you all to be recognized for songwriting?
I always thought I was a songwriter, and certainly was a better songwriter than a guitar player. And, you know, we lived or died on the strength of our songs. That's it, you know.
Yeah.
So this is a huge honor, you know, to be noticed for something that it is what I do. You know?
Yeah. It's so interesting how many artists, musicians think of themselves first as songwriters. I mean, is that true for all of you?
You know, for me, it is the hardest part. I
Yeah.
mean, literally, almost anyone can pick up a guitar or play a piano or do those things to one degree or another.
Yeah.
But not anyone can write a good song.
Yeah.
It is the hardest thing that we do. And it's the thing that we've worked on the most from the very beginning. And
Yeah.
I think we're pretty proud of it.
Because we had to.
Yeah, well,
I mean, really, early on,
Yeah.
just to put food on the table, we had to write songs as fast as we could.
Yeah.
Go out and tour them into little places.
What made you want to be songwriters?
The Beatles.
Really?
That was, when I was 7, I heard that, and it was like, it changed my life.
Yeah.
Meet the Beatles.
Yeah.
Punk rock.
Punk rock. Yeah.
you can't play covers all night long.
No.
And
Some people, a lot of people do.
Well, and that's great. I mean, I've done it, but once we realized we could, it was like the keys to the kingdom.
Yeah.
Once we realized that we could actually sit down and create these things,
Yeah.
then we could play them for people and lift everybody up. It was magic.
Yeah.
And so writing songs was the key to doing the things we wanted to do, which was play music and make people dance.
Yeah. Peter?
We had a bunch of songs when we first started, and they weren't great.
Yeah.
And then about 6 months in, all of a sudden, these songs started appearing. You know, Radio for Europe and Sitting Still and
Yeah.
Gardening Night, and it was all in the space of about 3 or 4 weeks. And all of a sudden, it just felt like, wow, we actually have an identity now. We're not
Yeah.
just this band that does this kind of song or that kind of song. We have a group identity.
What was that identity?
It was the 4 of us doing, you know, we're all unique players and singers.
Yeah.
These guys are better technically than I'll ever be, but we all have our own styles that are, no one else sounded like
You
us.
still have the best right hand in the business.
This is true.
The
this-
arpeggio, man.
And the songs we were writing,
Yeah.
we realized it didn't really sound like anybody else. You know, some of our earlier songs that we wrote, you know, you could kind of trace the lineage of where we got it from. But with
Yeah.
these new ones, we were like, okay, these are our songs. They sound like nobody but us.
Yeah.
And this is where we're going.
Yeah. How would you describe that sound? What did you hear?
That's not for me to say.
Somebody once said that every band member was soloing from beginning to end of each song.
Yeah.
I think we all did everyone did the wrong things.
Well,
And it kind of worked.
Well, Peter's arpeggiated guitar playing
Yes.
leaves a lot of room for me
Yeah.
to have fun with the bass because I'm not going to sit there and play the root all night long.
Yeah.
So Peter's creating melody by playing the arpeggios. I'm creating melody on the bass. Bill is the most orchestral drummer I know. So he's not just bashing drums back there. He's creating a drum part that fits that song.
Yeah.
And Michael, of course, is one of the best melodicists in the world. So we just have all this melody going on and all this self-identity going on, and that's
Yeah.
what one thing that made us special.
Yeah.
I've never been called a melodicist before.
I'm not even sure that's a word.
I kind of like it.
I think I made it up.
I guess it has to have been accidental, essentially. I mean, you wouldn't have known that this was going to work.
It felt like kismet to me.
It did.
When it happened, it felt right.
Yeah.
But the first songs that we wrote really were not very good. But then it all kind of, as Peter said, it all kind of happened, and then we were like, oh wow, we can really actually do this.
I remember the very first practice. Bill and I had some stuff left over from our band in Macon,
Yeah.
and we showed it to Peter and Michael, and they took it to places, even that very first night, that I didn't expect. And
Yeah.
I was thrilled. I said, okay, I love what these guys are doing with what Bill and I have been bashing around for the last year and a half, and they just took it to brand new places, and we said, okay, this works for me.
When you start writing songs, you guys are not long. How old were you at that time? I mean,
I was 19 when the
Right.
band started.
early 20s.
21.
Was there a direction in mind, or were you just trying anything?
Our intention, I think, from the very beginning was not to be categorized in. There were a number of different in 1979, 1980.
Yeah.
There were all these different. You could be new wave, you could be punk, you could be
Yeah.
kind of not quite hardcore. We didn't want to be categorized as any of those things, so we worked really hard not to have categorization.
Nice
someone,
escape.
Someone finish, yeah, someone finish my sentence for me, please.
Like you've talked in the past, I know, about wanting to write songs that appeared to not come from any particular time. Which, I mean, can you do that by design?
It was not just the writing of songs, but the recording of the record,
Yeah.
the sounds you use, the instruments you use. We didn't use the hot keyboards of the day, and writing songs. Yeah, I mean, because we were lucky enough to find that when we wrote songs, they had our identity. As I said, they stopped sounding like us trying to write other people's songs,
Right.
and they started to sound like our songs. And that in itself, when you've got as many disparate influences as four of us have, you end up with something that is kind of timeless because you can't really pin down where any of it comes from. And the same thing goes to the records. You listen to a record from 1983 and it could have been made 2 years ago.
Right. Among the many reasons you are distinctive, all four of you write, which is pretty unusual for a band.
We're lucky.
That's the way it should be. I'm either a total communist or a Democrat or something, but my feeling was all of this is writing, you know?
Yeah.
Chord changes, melodies, bass lines, drum parts.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine working in a group where then you sit down and argue about who did what and who gets owed what. I
Right.
just don't work like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, second best decision we ever made was when Peter said we're going to split the songwriting 4 ways.
What was
Yeah.
first?
Getting Birds Downs to be our advisor.
Here, here.
Both of those are wise decisions. But it works in your case because all of you are involved in this music. Not, I mean, obviously not equally in every song, but you've all had a role in the songwriting, which I can't think of many bands that's true of.
It's true.
When we first started, it was just for me an idea. It was like a teenage dream.
Yeah.
It didn't occur to me that I would have to actually like write lyrics and perform. I mean, it just felt like, well, that'd be a really cool thing to do.
Yeah.
And I really set out to do it. And then we were doing it, and then it was like, uh-oh, this actually requires some modicum of talent. Not sure that's in there, but you know, we dug deep and it finally appeared.
I mean, I know every song comes in a different pathway, but I mean, was there a process? No.
I mean, you know, some of them we just make up at sound checks. One of us will bring in chords or ideas, you know.
Some of them take as long to write as they do to play.
Yeah.
You know, Peter would come in with an idea, and within 5 minutes we'd have a song, or sometimes we'd have to work on it for weeks before we ever got it where we wanted it.
What is,
Or years. Lyrics are not easy.
No.
And the more I wanted them to be great and for there to be something there for everyone, the harder they got.
yeah. I mean, you've said you're not an autobiographical songwriter.
No, I'm not. No. I try to fictionalize, at least if I'm pulling from real life. It's never autobiographic.
I would think in some ways that made the songwriting process harder.
I'm not a reader. These guys are the readers. So I guess I'm an observer, maybe more than anything else. I look a lot and pay attention and then put it together and create stories.
Yeah.
I saw an interview with you yesterday from years ago.
Uh-oh.
You said, I just encourage the public, don't confuse the singer with the song.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was always true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we gave you so many songs.
Yeah.
It's like,
These guys are really prolific.
Well, think about what he had to write 10 to 12 songs per record.
Yeah.
And it was a record a year.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of words and stories to try to tell. I'm glad it was
Not to
his
mention
job
the
and not-
songs that never made the cut
Yeah.
that he wrote lyrics to.
Sometimes if you're forced to write, it's better. Sometimes it's not.
It's a thin line, and no one knows it better than the three gentlemen flanking me to my left and right. Pressure is a good thing.
Yeah.
Too much pressure it's like a shutdown.
Yeah.
It wasn't always up to me. You know, we were all really involved in the final thing, and these guys were great and very supportive of my struggles with writing lyrics.
Yeah.
And they're great editors. So
You guys were remarkably prolific. A lot of bands really struggled for periods of time to come up with material, and sometimes that deadline or the pressure of another album just shut people down. But it doesn't seem to have happened to you.
Well, we were lucky in the sense that we loved the craft of songwriting so much that, I mean, I couldn't walk past a guitar or piano without pick up the guitar, not the piano, and try to play it.
Yeah.
You know, Peter was always playing the guitar,
Yeah.
always, all day long, every day. And
Yeah.
when you do that and you've got some sort of talent and inspiration in there, it's going to come out.
Yeah.
And we also realized early on that this was important to us. Having great songs was the thing that was going to make this fun for us and make
Yeah.
it work for us. So that was just something we worked on all day, every day while we were younger and together in the same town, in the same house.
And we tried really hard not to repeat ourselves.
Yeah.
We tried to do something and then move on and challenge ourselves, and we challenged ourselves over and over and over again
Yeah.
with each record.
I'm curious what songwriting means to each of you personally. What has it given you?
Something to do at 3 in the morning when I can't sleep. I mean, it's just an obsession I've had that's not necessarily always healthy.
Yeah.
And it's ongoing. And,
Yeah.
you know, I'll be sitting in my pajamas at 3 in the morning going, is there anyone on earth who cares if I finish this song?
Yes.
The answer is, I guess me. No one else.
Yeah.
And it's just an obsession. I'm assuming at some point it'll kind of quit. But
Yeah. Obviously, if you keep doing it, it has to give you something in some way.
yeah, I mean, absolutely. But, you know, for me, the memory is always the first time we play it together, or hearing the record come back at you, or just the rehearsal where it all comes together.
Yeah.
That kind of means more to me than the struggling, trying to put chord A after chord B. And,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
It's like building a puzzle, completing a puzzle. Because
Yeah.
okay, I've got this and this is good, but what's the piece that I need that's going to make it right and make it
Yeah.
whole? And when you come up with that, it's just very satisfying. And to look back on it as a finished product and go, wow, that's very cool.
Emotionally, personally, is it important to you in any way in terms of what it allows you to process?
I mean, as mediums go, music is incredibly, profoundly emotional and goes straight to the heart. I wish I was a really good actor. I'm not.
Yeah.
But I know that all actors wish that they could write songs,
Yeah.
and they can't.
Yeah.
But that's what they really want. So there's a sense of ownership and a pride about that when you have written something and you know that it's not just good, but possibly great.
Yeah.
That's a really great feeling.
Yeah. But you don't always recognize that at first, do you?
No, hell no.
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 How long does it take to see it? Or do you have to see it through other people's eyes?
Usually sitting in a room with someone who hasn't heard it, and you feel the vibe, you feel the energy, you know, you know where it needs to change or be changed,
Yeah.
or if it's perfect.
Yeah.
When we made records all through the 80s, I would always take the cassette of the final mix, and I would go to my favorite bar in Atlanta, and we'd shut the thing down, and I'd play it for my friends.
Yeah.
And that was when, out of the context of the studio and out of the context of being with these guys, I could kind of hear it through someone else's ears.
Yeah.
And that's when I would go like, holy cow, this is a great record. You didn't always know until it had some different context. And then, it just blew me away to do that. It was so much fun because they'd all be thinking, wow, that's amazing. And I go, you know, you're right. It actually is.
Yeah.
The other thing about R.E.M. though is that we didn't always write music or songs that people connected with on the first listen. Sometimes
Yes.
it took 7 or 8 or even 10 listens before
Yeah.
the melodies sunk in. You wake up singing it the next day, and then you know you've got something.
Yeah. That is true. What does that say, do you think?
We're very complicated, intelligent people.
It means they'll last. I mean, so many songs, you love them on the first listen, then after
Yeah.
4 or 5, you're like, okay, that's enough of that.
I know. But those are always my favorite on albums in the end, is the ones you discover that take you a while to really discover, because you'd listen to the whole album and you'd kind of be like, well, I've heard the songs I really like, but I'm going to leave this on because it takes energy to lift the needle. And then after a while, that's the song that sticks with you for reasons you don't really understand.
And that's a gratifying part of songwriting, is when
Yeah.
you can write a song. First of all, that people would have the patience to listen to them
Yeah.
multiple times. That's kind of amazing. But
Yeah.
but the fact that you can write something that actually stands up to repeated listenings and scrutiny and actually gets better
Yeah.
as it goes along is it's very satisfying.
Yeah.
Also, talk about Peter or Bill, what it is to put together an album.
You know, you start off with a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
That's it. And it's like, I've got 30 pieces of music and no lyrics, and what are we doing? And, you know, that's the hardest part, is when does it start being incoherent and start telling you what it is?
Yeah.
Because, you know, you want the record to flow from song 1 to the very last.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of like, I don't even know what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
I mean, that happens on every record I've ever been on.
I was always relieved when we got to the sequencing stage.
Yeah.
That's a little work. I mean, it's kind of not easy.
Yeah.
But it meant the songs were done.
There's the obligation of songwriting that comes with an album that you have to put out. And I mean, was obligation a good thing or a bad thing?
Obligation to each other.
Obligation to write, to create. You have to come up with songs, right? You know, you're sitting there, the label's waiting for another record, and
Peter Buck's waiting for another record.
Sorry, guys.
were you the taskmaster?
Yeah. Not because I wanted to, but
Yeah,
it's certainly not like I could get these guys to do anything they didn't want to do. It was just, I'm kind of let's just do it and let's get it done.
yeah,
And there'll be something in between, and at the end it'll be finished, and then we go on to the next thing.
yeah,
Yeah, somebody's got to drive the train, and we were all more than happy to have Peter be sort of our motivator in terms of, like, okay, it's time to write these songs, get the next record going.
More than happy may not be the phrase that I would use.
Looking
Accepted.
back, let's say there's a body of work that wouldn't be there had you not been pushing us as hard as you did.
yeah,
That's when you realize, wow, this is really quite something that we did, quite an
Yeah.
accomplishment.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's a hell of a body of work. I mean, it's pretty amazing when you dive into it. I don't know how often you guys go back and listen to it.
Zero.
Zero?
Occasionally.
We've heard them.
I don't listen to the radio. I don't watch TV.
Yeah,
A friend of mine texted me and said, "Oh, this song is the favorite song you guys ever did." And I went, I don't even remember what song that is.
Yeah.
So I had to go to YouTube and look it up. It was on our last record. And I went, oh, yeah, that is a good song.
yeah,
But, it's kind of like, once I do it, it's gone.
yeah. For you, it's over.
The minute we okay the final mix, it's just over.
Yeah. Why is that?
Got somewhere else to go? I don't know.
More songs to write.
More songs to write. So you don't sit there and celebrate them necessarily. Well, you have to perform them. You have to perform them. So
And you do celebrate them. I mean, you're aware that while you feel great about accomplishing that, you've still got the next one to do at some
Yeah,
point.
yes.
But yeah, you have to give yourself perspective and enjoy what you've done. But you can't just sit there and go, wow, we're great because we finished that. Because there is pressure from within. We gave ourselves a lot of this pressure to do the next record, to write the next bunch of songs and have them be great.
yeah, yeah, that's great. But what are you going to do now?
Yeah. Yeah. And we sort of preempted any record company or anything like that from giving us pressure. We just put it on ourselves. And
Yeah.
so anything they said or did was nothing compared to the self-motivation that we had to get out and do this.
How did you guys do under that pressure? I mean, it seems like you did pretty well.
Fortunately, writing songs was something we loved to do, at least musically speaking. I mean, we loved getting together and making noise and seeing what came out of it.
Yeah.
Or showing each other. I'd come in with a part I was very excited about, and I'd show it to Peter and Bill, and Peter'd go, okay, here's the chorus. And we'd like, wow, that's great.
Yeah.
It was just the thrill of working together and creating these little pieces of whatever they are that was so satisfying.
Right.
We're also here to tell the tale, and we're sitting at the same table together with
Yeah.
deep admiration and lifelong friendship. A lot of people that do this can't
Yeah.
claim that, and so that's kind of great.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think you can all sit at this table when so many bands can't together?
Ego and lawyers.
Not ours.
Theirs.
I think we quit at the right time.
Yeah.
I think that we all saw that the end of the road was there, and
Yeah.
that it was becoming this circular thing that we were going to do in every, and I think we all just kind of came to this conclusion that this is a really good place to finish.
Yeah.
Great tour, great album, go home.
Yeah. Yeah. Any second thoughts about that? Anybody ever?
No.
Nope.
Never.
Pretty happy.
Yeah. Bill, did you ever have any second thoughts about walking away?
Of course I did.
You did. You okay?
Yeah. That was a weird time for me.
I bet.
And I made it weird for these guys too.
No, I didn't.
No, it wasn't weird. We respected your decision 100%.
Yeah, because we're all sitting here friends again.
Yeah.
Still.
But it was hard.
I was going through a tough time.
Yeah. Well, you had some major health issues that you had to deal with.
Yeah. I'm not going to use that as an excuse.
You're not.
No.
What would you attribute it to?
Maybe it reduced, maybe that thing in Switzerland,
Yeah.
brain aneurysm and successful surgery, it may have lowered my energy level.
Yeah.
I was type A, hyperactive until that.
Yeah.
And I just didn't have the drive I once did
Yeah.
to do this.
So you knew you had to give it up.
Yes. And I didn't regret it at the time. I sort of regretted it a little later.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago. That was over a quarter of a century ago.
But obviously it's still emotional on a certain level.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm close to these guys, and I was close to what we did.
Yeah. Yeah, you did some amazing stuff. You did. I want to talk about a couple of songs. You guys mentioned, Radio Free Europe was your first single. It was obviously not the first song you wrote, but from what it sounds like, that's kind of the point where you started knowing what you actually sounded like?
It was one of the first 4 or 5 songs that we just felt like, oh yeah, this is who we are. At least this is who we are right now, that we had a individual identity. And like I said, Radio Free Europe, Sitting Still, Gardening at Night, Romance, which never ended up on a real record. But all these songs were just kind of coming out, and all of a sudden it felt like...
Pretty Persuasion.
Pretty Persuasion. Yeah. And then all of a sudden it seemed like our set started to sound like, wow, a real band would do these songs.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That's got to be pretty much of a thrill.
We kind of grew up in public. We didn't really know what we were doing. Mike and Bill are really great musicians. Peter and I are not.
Yeah.
And so we were learning all together how to do this thing. But there was a moment where it was like, wow, we don't sound like the people that we came into the room as fans of, the people that were big influences on us, each individually different and a lot of overlap. We suddenly started to sound like something very different.
Yeah.
And that very different became R.E.M.
So we pretty much always started with music that you guys would bring to Michael. Did you ever write a lyric first?
Yeah,
you did.
It never worked.
It never worked.
No, they never wanted to. It never turned out that the lyric was the motivation for a song being written around it.
Right.
But that's probably partly my fault as well. I'm a bit of a perfectionist.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things that made us stand out, I think, was the fact that when the 3 of us wrote a song, it had to be interesting on its own, without lyrics or singing vocal melody. We had to enjoy it and enjoy playing it, and it stood alone already.
Yeah.
And so when you add Michael to it, it took it to the stratosphere. So that was, I think, one thing that gave us a leg up on a lot of other bands in terms of songwriting.
Yeah.
I distinctly remember these guys came up with an idea for a song during a sound check, and it was, and I had written a letter that month, and I heard this cadence while they were playing, and I was on stage, and I was like, wait a minute, I think I've got something for this. And I went into my dressing room, came back with the letter, and it became Evo the Letter.
Yeah.
But it was all there. I don't have the original letter. I have a scan of the original letter. The lyric is exactly as it's sung in the song. It's just wild that
It came straight from the letter.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah, I picked two sentences and repeated them, and that became the chorus.
Yeah. Some songs came remarkably quickly to you. Losing My Religion was one of those, right?
Not for me, but
No.
No,
That was Peter.
I kind of had brought it in on mandolin, and within an hour we were playing it exactly like the record.
it took me a little while to come up with the bass line.
Yeah, but you were doing perfectly well the second time through. And then Michael had lyrics like the second day. Exactly like the record.
Yeah.
And then I think we only played it once in the studio. It was like, yeah, we know that.
Yeah. You were just messing around with the mandolin. You just started playing?
Yeah, and I still don't play mandolin. I would just had one there, and I don't. Every time I do a session, someone goes, "Oh, bring a mandolin." I'm like, I don't play a mandolin. You could throw a rock and find a mandolin player that's better than I am. But I just happen to write it on mandolin.
Yeah. So fun. Where did you pull that lyric from so quickly?
No idea.
No idea.
I remember originally it was "That's Me in the Kitchen," not the spotlight.
Yeah.
And that, of course, turned the spotlight onto me, the singer. And that's where the singer, don't confuse the singer with the song.
Yeah.
But
And the title came from something your grandmother
losing
used
my
to say.
religion, I lost my religion as a Southern phrase,
Yeah.
and I torqued it slightly for the title.
Yeah. You all didn't really think that much of that song, did you?
I love the song, but we never thought it was going to be a hit.
Yeah.
It should not. It's like a bumblebee. They shouldn't be able to fly, and that song should have been a hit.
But boy, did it fly. So, when something like that happens to a song, how do you react to that? What do you make of it? Because you guys created that thing that took off.
No, I kind of went, well, about time. I mean, you know, we made a lot of really good records, and then just randomly we had a hit single off this thing with the lead mandolin. I was like, God, go figure.
Yeah, yeah. You can't design it, can you? No. When you look back on songwriting and the whole process and all the success you had, what do you make of that process? Do you think you figured it out? Is it any easier now than it would have been 25 years ago, or is it still just the same?
I think everything gets harder as you get older.
Do you?
Well, you've done it. You know, it's like, how do you avoid repeating yourself?
Right.
And that becomes kind of high up on the list of what you're thinking when you're writing a song. It's like, oh, shoot, I've already done that.
Yeah.
I wrote a great song once, and I was like, man, this is really cool. And I was like, wait, it's Freebird.
Yeah.
Okay, can't write that one. So.
Is that part of the why you guys disbanded? There's just nowhere else to go?
One of many. There were so many reasons why that was the right
I
time.
think the main reason was that at that point there wasn't anything we could agree on really musically.
Right.
What kind of music, how to record it, are we going to go on tour? You know, it's like we could barely agree on where to go to dinner.
Yeah.
And now we could just agree on where to go to dinner and don't have to worry about the whole, you know, we work in very different ways.
I can't believe I'm going to quote the Byrds, but to everything turn, there's a season. Our season, you know, the time, it had become the time for us to encapsulate our legacy, to be able to look at it and say, that's what we did. We didn't drive it into the ground. We did it. Yeah. We can walk away from it and remain friends and look back on it and go, wow, we did this beautiful thing.
As you say, you don't really listen to your stuff a lot. Have you ever sort of looked at as a body of work and said, well, look at this, you know? Because it's pretty impressive.
It's so self-indulgent to do that. I mean, none of us are really quite that self-indulgent.
Okay, I am.
Not to that. Like, so when we re-releasing these 25-year anniversary. Now, at that point, it's a legitimate time to listen to the record again and think about it.
Songs get stuck in my head, though, and the only way to exercise that is to listen to them. And these songs, because we wrote them, are part of our DNA. It's like you pick up, even if Peter forgot a song off of one record, the second he hears it, he's like, oh yeah, I remember a part of that, right?
Yeah.
So the only way to exercise it is to listen to it.
Yeah.
And then I wind up on YouTube, and I watch some live performance. I'm like, wow, I can't believe we did that. Like we did things.
I know.
And we did it really well from time to time.
Yeah.
It's really wild.
That is pretty cool to look back on.
It means a lot to people. And you know, I was going to say earlier, music is a great medium, but what you really want as someone who creates things is to respond to the moment, to respond to the present, and to somehow elevate or lift not just yourself, but the people around you in some way. Yeah. And our job as songwriters was to kind of intuit or feel where we were in that moment, and then translate it into music. Yeah. And when we did that and it hit, it really hit.
I mean, you know this, people take an ownership of them and they become incredibly personal.
Well, it's like Peter said, once we finish the record, it's not ours anymore. It belongs to everybody else.
Yeah. But it is yours.
It is, but it's not just ours.
Yeah.
Now, yes, of course, it'll always be ours, but now it belongs to whoever likes it, whoever wants to listen to it and like it.
I got to ask the question that everybody's going to ask me if I asked, which you know is coming, which is, what would it take to get you guys back together one more time?
A comet.
Super glue.
Super glue? It ain't happening, is what you're saying. No. No. Why is that?
It'd never be as good.
That's why.
I mean, it never is. You know, I go see all the bands that have been touring for a million years, and you know, we had our time and we did it as well as we could. I don't think I have any interest in going back and celebrating our past or, you know, I just don't know what I'd be trying to accomplish if we got back together.
Yeah. You don't think that there might come a moment where you just want to get together and play all those songs one last time somewhere?
But then what have you done?
There's no one last time.
Yeah, because what if we got together, just the four of us goofing off and played a song? Be, oh, great, let's do this again. It's like all the reasons you don't want to do it are still in place.
Yeah.
It'll, like Peter said, it'll never be as good. We are lucky enough to have don't really love the word, a legacy that we can leave in place and not mess up.
Yeah.
And you don't get that opportunity but one time. And once you change that, you can't go back.
Yeah.
I remember when the Velvet Underground came back together after decades apart. and toured. And I, as a fan, I was invited, but I didn't want to see it. I was like, I want to remember it the way, what it meant to me as a teenager and as a young adult. I don't really want to see their version of it now.
Yeah.
I now, of course, completely regret not going to see them. But it kind of maybe would have been its own thing. It would have been quite amazing. But
yeah. So there's no check big enough. There's no.
No, I mean we did it. We had our day in the sun, and we grabbed it.
Ran with it.
And ran with it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. We celebrated Peter's birthday a couple of years ago, and over dinner, after several glasses of wine, a guitar came out, and we all performed a little version of one of our favorite songs together.
Yeah.
And it was really nice,
Yeah.
But it was a private dinner.
But that's about as close to as a reunion as you're going to get.
Yeah.
Yeah. That sounds like a nice moment.
It was. Very good food, too.
If you were working in the studio trying to write something, how would that work?
Somebody brings something in.
I would do something like this.
Yeah, somebody would bring in an idea and show it to the rest of us, and then we just start messing with it. Sometimes we would literally just start playing without any plan at all.
Yeah.
Just everybody play what they felt like playing, and sometimes it would morph into a song.
Yeah. Was that typically productive? I mean, did that?
No, it's not. It's not a very efficient way to write songs. But sometimes when you don't have any ideas, you just like throw it all in the pot and see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, did that work? I mean, it did work sometimes, though, didn't
There
it?
were a couple of times when we'd come up with a song. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you think of an example?
Me and Honey.
Yeah.
That's how.
Well, me and Honey I was sitting here playing that bass riff, and you were sitting. It was one of the few times you were at rehearsal, and you were sitting right there, and I was playing that little riff, and you're like, "Keep playing that, keep." I was like, "It's really hard. Keep playing it." So I kept playing it, and you like in the time it takes to play it, you wrote the song. I said, "Okay, it needs one more chord," so we added the fifth, and it was done.
Yeah.
Like the fastest song we ever wrote.
I would often hang out in the front room.
Yeah.
Because the sound is muffled through
Yeah.
there. So it's like your neighbor's playing some music, and
Yeah.
you like it or you don't.
Yeah.
When I liked it, I was like, oh, there's something there. There's something in that thing. And that's easier than being in the room with the amps and with everything sometimes.
Yeah. So you're kind of eavesdropping.
I'm eavesdropping.
Yeah. But that allows you to sort of filter everything. That's interesting. God, I've never heard anybody do that before in the songwriting process.
Well, then if I had an idea, I'd come in here and sing it, and on the mic, and these guys would hear it, and they would then maybe play off of that a little bit. Or
It sounds like once you came up with a sound in that early group of songs you were talking about, you became relatively convinced in your ability as songwriters, or did that take a while?
No, we knew pretty quickly. I'd say we knew within a year. Well, I knew right away, like I said, at our very first rehearsal, I loved what Peter and Michael did with the songs that Bill and I had.
Yeah.
So I knew something good was going on. That didn't mean we could write good songs, but the foundation was there.
Yeah.
And then pretty quickly, like we said, once we started with hitting things like Gardening at Night and all that, we said, we can legitimately write some songs here.
Yeah.
as soon as we got good at something, we would push ourselves to not repeat ourselves. So we would try to really push the limitations of our abilities. And that turned into a bunch of different sounding records with a lot of different kind of material.
Yeah. Were you aiming for anything in the beginning?
World domination.
We're in a band. We write songs.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, it just becomes part of your daily routine. Mm-hmm. And, when we were here, we came in 5 days a week and rehearsed. And at some point, we'd have a body of work that seemed like it was a record.
Yeah.
We're all music fans. So to write something that would excite other people like ourselves, maybe if there was a goal, it was something like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess what I'm trying to get at is how you structured the process, if in fact you structured it. It sounds like there was some kind of structure to it.
You had to show up.
You would show up.
We all show up at 1 o'clock and bring in any ideas that we had.
Yeah.
And see if it inspired anybody else to do something with it.
Yeah.
And that was it. And like I said, sometimes we had no ideas and we would just, not jam, but we would just make noise. And sometimes something would emerge from that.
Yeah.
But it was only structured in the sense that we had to be here at 1 o'clock.
That can run off the rails pretty easily. I mean, it does in most bands, I think.
Well, we didn't push it. If we showed up and we played, like Peter said, if we played for 45 minutes and nothing was happening, we'd be like, okay, let's not beat our brains out.
Yeah.
Come back tomorrow.
I remember when, I guess, Drive came out, as a single, and so I guess it's kind of wild that you have this song that doesn't have a chorus as your first single.
Yeah.
I kind of went, yeah, I guess it didn't really have a chorus, did it? It just felt like a complete piece of music.
Yeah.
So it was really intuitive.
So how did you know when it was a song in the room?
When it felt right.
You just know. Yeah.
You just know.
Yeah.
If you enjoyed playing it and listening to it,
Yeah.
then it was a song.
Yeah.
If you hated it, out the window.
And you trust your own immediate judgment, pretty much.
Who else? I mean, it was
don't
just
know.
us. So, yeah, we did. And that, like I said, when we started writing what we considered real songs, it was pretty clear that we had an idea about what was going to work and what wasn't.
Yeah. I was looking at a quote from, I guess, what turned out to be Kurt Cobain's last interview. I know you guys were friends with him, but I mean, he was incredibly flattering to you all and said something to the effect, I wish I could do what those guys do. I don't know how they do it. What does it mean when you hear something like that?
I wish we could tell him how to do it.
Yeah.
You know, but we just did it. It wasn't. Everyone thinks it's this calculated plan of here's how you know, like Squeeze, fantastic band, but they had a rule where they had to write a song every day, one song every day, and out of that they came up with a ton of great songs. We didn't have that sort of. We didn't want that sort of discipline. We didn't want this to be a job, even though we were very serious about doing it. We didn't want to make it onerous and put even more pressure on ourselves by having to do this in a certain order and a certain structure. We just wanted to have fun, and the more you relax, really, the more you relax, the more you're going to come up with good stuff anyway.
Did you write mostly in here?
Starting in '86.
Yeah.
Yeah, to the very end, yeah.
Yeah.
This is where we'd put everything together and put it in its final shape. So yeah, this has been the place.
Before that, it was Mike's living room, right, on Barbara Street.
And that's where I remember we wrote Little America in that front room.
A lot of that record.
A lot of that second record was done there. Yeah.
Yeah. There was one, I can't remember what it was. It was one album you wrote almost entirely on the road, I think. That's the way you described it. Maybe it was...
That was, yeah.
New Adventures.
Yeah, New Adventures, right?
Yeah, we went on the road with nothing and just sound checked. And by the end of the tour, we were playing 8 songs, I think, and then finished the rest up. I think I was just trying to push us in a direction that was like, this is different from what we've done before. Let's put some pressure on ourselves.
I mean, you talked about, I think in a couple of the interviews I read, the sort of adrenalized state you're in, obviously, on a tour. Yeah. I mean, does that accelerate the songwriting process? Does it help it or not?
It was really hard for me to focus. When we were on tour, I gave everything to the performance, and you know, my body was my instrument, and so it took a beating. I didn't have the headspace really to write songs. But what would happen and did happen with New Adventures in Hi-Fi is that I got ideas. Yeah. And maybe I'd just get a little bit of an idea, but that was enough to then, after the tour, I could go back and finish it. And it took a lot. It took a lot of focus, and sometimes that focus was about not focusing.
It's such a peculiar state, being on tour. I mean, it's so unnatural, but I don't know if it's conducive to creativity or not.
I mean, I'm trying to think of, like, the song "Belong" happened in a hotel room. The song "Departure" happened after a flight from Singapore to San Sebastian. There were a lot of things that did happen on tour, as Peter said.
Do you remember where most songs have come from?
I do.
You do?
Some, not all.
Yeah. Because in your cases, there's sounds, I mean, that come from somewhere.
Yeah, it's not even really particularly cathartic. I'm just putting together pieces of the puzzle to bring in the show to everyone else. Yeah. Sometimes I remember really well when I come up with something, and sometimes I don't even remember having been involved in the song. So
that must be a pretty weird feeling.
It is. I'll hear something on the radio.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds kind of familiar. Oh yeah, that's me.
What does that feel like?
It makes me feel a little on the stupid side, And I was with somebody once, and something came on the car radio, and it was something I played on, and she's going, "Oh, that's you." And that's not me. Said, "That's you." I said, "That's not me." And I asked the guy whose record it was. He goes, "Yeah, that was you. Yeah. You played that, all the guitars like that." And I was like, "I don't have any memory of doing that at all." I mean, gosh, for every one that we record, there's 5 that we don't.
Yeah.
And it's just...
It's so much.
A lot of stuff. And then you're kind of going, did I do this? Or has this been used before? Do we end up making a record of that? I don't really remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd listen to old demos sometimes when we were trying to get the extra content for the reissues we were doing. And,
Yeah.
and it was like, I don't remember that demo at all. Did I write that? Did you write that? Who played guitar on that? And sometimes we don't know because you weren't thinking that hard about it. You were just writing it, recording it, getting it ready to maybe give to Michael, maybe not. And all the circumstances around it just get lost.
Were you guys pretty good archivists of the stuff that you made and all that stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Well, I
huge.
mean, we never, speaking of the Beatles, we never had camera crews in the rehearsal space while we were actually composing music. I mean,
Right.
that is the best way to just shut it down really fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're more interested in the work than our presentation on TV or in the movie theater of the work.
Did you ever figure out a way to sort of create the most ideal environment to make music? Was that just here?
Well, we love this place. We were very comfortable here.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's the attitude you walk in with. I think.
Is it?
Yeah. This is a safe place. You can't hear anything we're doing from the outside.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's comfortable.
Yeah.
Years ago, there used to be a air conditioner right here. Remember the
Yeah.
window unit?
Yeah.
And it kept this room nice and cool, but it made that room like a furnace for all the gear.
When you say there's an attitude you walk in with, what is that attitude, do you think?
Positive, be nice to everybody.
Yeah.
a lot of good work got done in here. You know,
Yeah.
we had a lot of fun in here. We created a lot of great pieces of music, and
Yeah.
we knew it for a lot of them.
It looks pretty much the same as when I was here like 12 or 13 years ago.
No, it hasn't changed.
It hasn't.
Why mess with perfection? Come on.
It's called the Dolly Parton Experience.
Yes, it is.
It's a multimedia experience.
Yes, it is.
You were trying to put all of your life into one show, which seems to me almost impossible.
Well, we did a pretty good job of it. Dollywood, they really got some wonderful people putting things together here, and then I had my team out of Nashville working on it as well. We used to have a museum where we had all of our artifacts and all. Then we thought, well, we need something bigger, we need something better.
Yeah.
So we got to keep up with the times, and everything is so digital.
Yeah.
So it was an easier way and a much more exciting way. And I think people relate to it more these days than they, do just looking at the things. So, but it tells my story from my childhood all the way through my career,
Yeah.
all the people that I've worked with. We go through everything from my family and the clothes, the hair, the stories, and
Yeah.
it just really covers everything.
Yeah.
I
Well, there's a
think
lot of chapters,
we
Dolly.
did. I know. Well, I've been at this a long time.
No, but
And
they're
I've got a
also
long way to go.
they're
huh?
also interesting and they're also different. I was struck by the fact that, and I know this is ground you've covered before, but in so many ways, when I go back and read your story, it feels like you knew this was going to happen.
Well, I just started so young
Yeah.
that the music was in our blood, as we talked about.
Yeah.
We're doing a history of, documentary and stuff of my family and tracing our musical roots
Yeah.
all the way back. But I just always loved it, and I had an uncle that really took great interest in me, my Uncle Bill. He saw early on that I was so serious about it,
Yeah.
from the time I was 7, 8, 9 years old when I started learning to play the guitar.
He's the one who took you to audition for a TV show when you were 10?
Yes, that was the Cass Walker show.
Yes.
So yeah, my Uncle Bill, helped me a great deal
Yeah.
because he was a musician himself and dreamed of stardom of his own. But
Yeah.
we wrote a lot of songs together. But he was that person that really helped me the most in those early days.
When you auditioned for that show and you were 10 years old,
Yeah.
were you nervous?
Of course, you're always nervous. I'm still nervous. When I do stuff, everybody says, oh, you seem so relaxed. I said, well, I am once the spotlight hits me.
Yeah.
Once I'm on stage, I'm there. So it's either do or die, kind of, so to speak. So I'm always fine, but while you're waiting backstage to go on that's where they say butterflies in your stomach. You just really, but I think that kind of energy, though, that nervous energy, even energy of any kind is good, as long as you make it work for you, as long as you don't panic with it.
Yeah.
But even as a little kid, I love the excitement of getting to sing in front of somebody.
Yeah.
I liked the attention of thinking that somebody was looking at me.
Yeah.
And I was doing something that somebody appreciated. It made me feel big and and special. So that was something that kind of. I kind of got addicted to that, I think, early on. And I thought, I got to get better and better so I can keep doing what I do because I like that feeling.
You said you always believed in your talent.
Well, I did, and I do.
Where did that belief come from?
I guess my mama did it because I was always writing these songs, stuff I'd never lived,
Yeah.
and love songs, people getting killed in the war. I would hear everybody talking, and I'd write all these songs.
Yeah.
And Mama was fascinated with the fact that I could do that. So anybody that would come to our house, Mama would say, "Ronnie, get your guitar." And then she'd say, "I want you to hear what this little young'un just wrote."
Yeah.
So, and then everybody would listen, and they'd think, "Oh, well, that is really, that's really something."
Yeah.
So I think I believed in it because I felt like I was doing something that everybody else wasn't doing at that moment, at
Yeah.
that time.
Yeah.
And so that fed back into that whole thing. I was getting that attention. And then being from that big a family, you know, you didn't have time for a lot of special attention with each child as your parents.
You had to fight for every minute.
Yeah, so I think I was fighting. But I do believe that, I mean, there's a lot of people more talented than me that write songs better, but I don't think there's anybody out there that loves doing it any more than me. And I believed that I had enough talent to take that and do something with it and make a living out of what I love to do.
Yeah.
And I have.
Yeah. Somebody in one of the articles I read who had worked with you called you a musical savant.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. The idiot part would be more like it.
But the songwriting part has always seemed to come very naturally to you. I don't think you get enough credit as a lyricist.
Well, thank you for saying that, because I take myself more serious as a songwriter than anything else. And if I had to give up every other part of the business, I would choose to be a writer.
Yeah.
Because that's my therapist, my guitar is my friend. Anything that I feel that I'm going through, anything that I see other people that I love going through that don't know how to express it, I am able to do that. I'm able to channel their feelings as well as mine. And I love that I can rhyme. Early on, I was able to rhyme.
Yeah.
You know, I can rhyme words good.
But it's not just your rhyming, Dolly. It's the words you pick. It's the words you use.
Thank you.
It's
saying
really,
that.
I mean, you've written some amazing songs.
Well, I love doing it, let's put it that way, and I hope I can always write. And of course, I love singing the songs I write, love recording them, and I love hearing other people sing songs I write, and that's always a big thrill to any writer to hear somebody else do your songs.
Yeah. You made a cameo appearance on Beyonce's country album.
Yes.
And she did Jolene. It must be nice to keep hearing your music come back like that.
Well, it is, and a lot of people ask me, well, what did you think about Jolene? I wish you'd have done it, you know, like the real Jolene. I thought, well, I said, look, I wrote that song 50-some years ago. Times have changed. Beyonce is not, you know, your average artist. Writers love it when people take their songs and interpret it their own way. I was proud of what she did. I had not heard it.
Yeah.
I was just assuming it was going to be the, you know, the Jolene, the traditional way. But when I heard it, I thought, wow, boy, she put a lot into that.
Yeah.
She put a lot of thought and effort into Jolene. But yes, it's a great feeling to hear your songs done by other artists. And that was a great album of hers, by the way.
Do you have a process?
Not really. As a skilled writer or somebody, it's just a way of life with me, what I do. Everything I do is just part of who I am. I don't even think about that. I'll be walking through the house going to do something else, and I'll have a basket of laundry or something, and I'll see my guitar sitting there, and all of a sudden I'll set the basket down, go get my guitar and sit down for a minute.
Right.
And, you know, I may write a song and I may get back to the laundry, I may not.
Yeah.
But my point is, it's just natural for me. If something hits me, everything is a song to me. Yeah, everything is a song. And I can always, you know, every situation that I see on TV, I think of it almost like in a song. I think, that'd make a good song.
You're turning it into a song in your head?
Yeah, in my head. It's like, so I get a lot of ideas from just watching the news or watching TV.
Yeah.
And, that's where most writers find their inspiration, just everyday living.
So when you get those ideas, what do you do with them?
What do I do with the ideas?
Yeah, I mean, because if you've got this stuff flowing through your head, obviously you have to write it down or put it somewhere.
Yeah, I often do. Sometimes if I've got a melody, if a melody comes to me, sometimes I'll just be humming and I'll think, oh, that's good.
Yeah.
And I know if I don't go do something about it, go put it down, you know, record it, I'll forget that melody. Now, it just may be a piece of the melody.
Yeah.
Or it may be more, maybe a verse maybe a verse melody and a chorus melody.
Yeah.
But I want to get that down, so I don't always, or sometimes if I write down a bunch of lyrics that are coming to me, just lines,
Yeah.
then I don't want to lose that. And then sometimes when I have the time,
Yeah.
I'll go back and start to work in both of those. Then sometimes, which is my favorite, is when I get a chance to sit down, I'll just start playing, and the words and the
Yeah.
music just come. And I just start. I don't always, like all writers, I don't always perfect the words. If I've got a good melody and a good thing going, I'll just make up a bunch of words just to fill in the gaps,
Yeah.
to fit that melody.
Yeah.
And, or, you know, and then I think, well, I'll go back and critique that later and work on that. So it just comes, it's just different every time, but
Yeah.
but it's there every day.
It is. Because given how busy you are, I'm amazed you can even have time to write songs.
Well, that's the one thing I do easy. I'll be putting on my makeup and I can write 2 or 3 songs, or I'll come up with a funny idea
Yeah.
or make something I'm thinking to make me laugh out loud myself, and I think, that would make a funny song. So, or that would make a good song.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter where I'm at, in the kitchen,
Yeah.
or if I'm cooking, or if I'm riding,
Yeah.
I'll see something. I always keep a notepad or some way to, to record something close by.
Do you get excited when you get a good lyric?
Yes, I do. Are you a writer? Because
Yes.
only another writer would know that. Sometimes if I get a good line, I go, yes, where'd that come from? That has to be something divine out there, because I'm too stupid to have thought of that. Like my line of tumble out of bed and stumble to the kitchen, pour myself a cup of ambition. That just rolled right out. I hadn't even thought about
Yeah,
it.
that's a great line.
And then when I thought of that one, I went, wow, that's as good as this cup of coffee's going to be.
It's really special when that happens.
I know, it's a fun thing, but I have some that's not that flippant, but sometimes, I'll just get a line and I think, whoa, that's pretty good for me. And I said it has to come from somewhere, because I ain't that smart.
Well,
And some of
that
them.
is the wonderful mystery of it all, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I love that, though. But I love that I can write. That's one of the things I appreciate so much. Of all the things that I do,
Yeah.
I love that I can write, because I can express everything.
When you got on the bus after you graduated from high school and went to Nashville, you went there to be a singer, not just a songwriter.
No, I went to be a star, which was going to involve songwriting and singing and recording. Had not at that time thought anything about being in the movies.
Yeah.
It took me years and years to even want to do that. I had no real interest in that at
Right.
that time. I just wanted to be, become a country music star and have my songs recorded by other people and record them myself. I was just thinking I wanted to be,
Right.
be a star.
But when you went down Music Row, everybody turned you down as a vocalist.
And I think everybody that walks the streets of Music Row at that time, they still call it that. But at that time, they had the Country Music Hall of Fame was down on Music Row, and they had the fountain there. And
Yeah.
I wrote a song called Down on Music Row.
Yes.
And it really talks about my journey when everybody, going into these offices, oh, don't wait, they won't be back, just leave a tape, we'll listen,
Yeah.
But I never gave up. I just kept on.
Why didn't you give up?
Well, because giving up ain't in me. I never once thought about it. I told my mom and dad when I left
Yeah.
that I wouldn't be home till I had something to show for it.
Yeah.
And meaning, I'll have to do something. I knew I could always come home.
Yeah.
So that gave me, I was going to be poor here. I was going to be poor there
Yeah.
for a while. So what's the difference where you're going to be poor? You can always, manage. But I had my Uncle Bill, though.
Yeah.
It's like he was working on the road a lot with other people playing
And you were
guitar.
writing with him.
Yeah, we wrote a lot of stuff together.
Yeah.
We had the #1 BMI song of the year in '66. A song recorded by someone else,
Yeah.
a song we wrote together called "Put It Off Until Tomorrow," which is still considered a country classic.
Yeah.
But that was one of the first things, and I was singing the harmony on that particular record, and that's kind of how I got recognized with the radio stations. People were calling, "Who's the girl singing that harmony with Bill Phillips?"
Yeah.
In this record.
Yeah.
So it's just everything in life is a journey,
Yeah.
step after step, this and that. But I'd always dreamed and hoped that I would make it, and I used to wonder what I'd be, how I would think about life after I got older. Think back on my life, and now that I am older,
Yeah.
it's nice to know that, when I go through this, this museum here,
Yeah.
the experience, the Dolly experience they call it.
Yeah.
Well, nobody knows Dolly better than Dolly. And I got so emotional when they had that all put together, going
Yeah.
back, reliving my life.
Yeah.
You know how they say sometimes that when you start to die, that your whole life flashes before you.
Yes.
Well, it about killed me going through there because I got so emotional
Yeah.
about so many of the pieces.
Yeah.
And, you know, Mom and Daddy are gone now, but
Yes.
seeing them so alive
Yeah.
and Kenny Rogers and
Yes.
so many of my friends, and it just really was overwhelming. But looking back on my life, there's very little I would change.
In looking back on it, did any parts of it surprise you in any way?
I think I'm more surprised now
Yeah.
looking back on it, like going into this museum, seeing all the things I've done.
Yeah.
I never slowed down. I didn't even realize I'd done all that.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I know you know it, but you know, to see somebody say it, where'd you get that?
Yeah.
How'd you get your hands on that?
Yeah.
I've never seen that.
Yeah.
You know, it's that kind of a thing. And then when you see that whole body of work,
Yeah.
it's like, wow, that's a lot of times. That's a lot of miles traveled, a lot of tears shed, you know, a lot of pain,
Yeah.
and a lot of joy. So
Yeah.
to see your whole life laid out before you in a museum like that,
Yeah.
especially at my age, because that's pretty much, I'll do some more things, hopefully. You know, like my Broadway musical and
Yeah.
other things, my life story is that. I'm sure there'll be other projects, but for the most part,
Yeah.
I've pretty much
You've written
know,
most of the chapters.
I've written most of the chapters. I'm on my last chapter because of my, you know, my age and everything. But I want it to really be the best one.
Yeah.
I want the story to end really well.
Are you working on an ending?
No, well, I'm working every day on an ending. And when that ending comes, I hope it's quick and fast. Don't you?
Yes. One of the most interesting chapters to me in that whole saga is the Porter Wagoner chapter, because it's such a complex period for you, because you get lifted up, but you also kind of get held back.
Yeah.
There's so much going on at
It
the same
was.
time.
That was a mixture of love and hate kind of a thing, like
Yeah.
when we were both bullheaded,
Yeah.
both very strong-willed, and it was Porter's show. But you know, it was me with my dreams, and I'd never gone to Nashville to be somebody's girl singer. I wanted to be the singer,
Yes.
the girl singer in my own band.
Yeah.
But I was very fortunate and lucky, and I don't take anything away from that.
Yeah.
I learned a lot from Porter. I learned a lot of things to do, and I learned a lot of things not to do.
It really, in many ways, it was kind of a crash course in the entire industry.
It was, and in life.
Yeah.
So it's like I said to Porter, you didn't discover me working at a Q-tip factory. I had already been on Grand Ole Opry before you when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But you know, those are the kind of the fun things that I've added in the show, where we, you know, in the Broadway show, where
Yeah.
we both are very comical. We both had a great sense of humor.
Yeah.
So a lot of the ways that I've dealt with the Porter Dolly years
Yeah.
in the musical is through songs
Yeah.
and through the comedy of it all, because it was just ridiculous. You know, the fights we had to have in order to try to get our point across
Yeah.
and all that. But I wouldn't take nothing for it now, because it's all of those things and all those people
Yeah.
that make you who and what you are.
Yeah, but I mean, to the point of what you learn, I mean, you were doing 2 duet albums a year, 2 solo albums a year, 200 shows a year, and a TV show?
Yeah, that's what I said. When you're doing that, you don't think about what you're doing. You're just doing it. That's what I mentioned earlier about
Yeah.
when you see your life before you in the museum,
Yeah.
and you think, how in the world could anybody cover that, you know, that much territory in a
Yeah.
lifetime?
And did it phase you at the time? I can't.
Well, I don't guess you think about it like that.
Yeah.
You're thinking about survival, not just of your personal self, but also for your profession. You think, well,
Yeah.
you know, you got to become a professional really quick.
Yeah. What do you think you learned then?
Well, I learned to stand up for myself.
Yeah.
I learned to stand on my own.
Yeah.
I learned to really use my talent as my strength and my power, because I thought, well, if I can't do this on just my own stamina and my own grit and gut, I will just write so many good songs,
Yeah.
I'll just outdo him. I will just be so good that I'll just have to go.
Yeah.
If he won't let me go, he would not allow me to have other producers, and he didn't want me going on other people's shows.
Yeah.
You know, like when I started to get famous within the show, like say a Johnny Carson show.
Yeah.
You know, how everybody wants like a new girl singer. But anyway, everything was kind of a threat with that.
Yeah.
But Porter was good. I loved Porter. It was really like I don't know. I guess we were there's a line in one of my songs like, we're either so different we can't get along, or we're so much alike.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of truth in both of that.
In both of those.
Yeah, I think it was meant to be, though.
You wrote I'll Always Love You
Yes.
as you were trying to leave.
That was the only way that I could get through to Porter, because I was wanting to go on my own. I had said I'd stay 5 years.
Yeah.
I stayed 7.
Yeah.
And it was just, and I was really growing. I was outgrowing the show if Porter wasn't willing to work with me for us to even be better. I would have been willing to stay with the show. We could have made the show even bigger, but it was the Porter show, not the Dolly show.
Yeah.
And I respect that, and I don't blame him.
Yeah.
But I stayed, and it got to where we were both very uncomfortable.
Right.
It was nothing but
Yeah.
just tension and all that.
You took that song to him. You played it for him.
I said, sit down, Porter, I've written a song for you. And I started singing the song, and just me and my guitar.
Yeah.
And he started crying, and he said, that's the best song you ever wrote, and if you'll let me produce it, you can go. I said, okay, I'm out of here. You can do it. But anyway, he produced a couple more of the songs that I did. And there was a gap, between where Porter sued me and all that. But after years went by, we became friends again, and I was with Porter when he was dying.
That whole story is a movie in and of itself.
I know. Well, it's a big part of the.
Well, there's just so much going on in it. It's so interesting. I have to admit, I had not heard the Elvis story, and I was shocked that I hadn't heard it. How did Elvis pitch you about that song?
Well, I knew one of Elvis's producers, Felton Jarvis. Anyway, so someone called me and said, Elvis wants to do I Will Always Love You. And I think it was Felton Jarvis that had called me that night. Yeah. And he said, Elvis would like you to come down to the studio because he's doing I Will Always Love You. And so I was so excited because I called and told everybody. Yeah. Elvis was doing my song and I was going to meet him. Yeah. And so later I got the call from Colonel Tom Parker. And he said, no, we don't do any songs that we don't publish or have half published. And I'd already had a #1 song on it of my own. And I said, well, no, I can't do that.
He specifically said, we won't do this unless we get half the publishing.
Half the publishing. He wanted all the publishing. I said, well, it's going to be the biggest heartbreak of my life. You can't have it. I can't do that because this is my most important copyright. And it was not Elvis's fault. He loved the song. Yeah. In fact, Priscilla told me later that was something, when they were walking down the steps, at the courthouse when they divorced, he was singing that to her, that I will always love you. That's how much he loved it. Yeah.
Wow. You put a song on your recent Rockstar album about Elvis.
Oh, I wrote this song because I was heartbroken when he didn't do it, and I could just hear him singing, I Will Always Love You, and I thought, I'm not one to just let something go. So Ronnie McDowell is a guy that sounds just like Elvis. Yeah. But he don't dress like him. He's not an Elvis impersonator, but he used to travel with Elvis. And when Elvis' voice was bad, he used to kind of cover, for Elvis, back there behind the scenes. So I asked him if he'd come and sing on that because I wrote this song. I dreamed about Elvis, and in it, I got to sing I Will Always Love You with an Elvis sound-alike. But it's a funny, cute story about that whole story about Colonel Tom. And them taking it, so yeah.
You actually recorded that like 22 years ago.
I did. That song, when we got ready to do the rock album, Kent Wells, who produced the rock album, he's changed a few instruments around, but my voice, everything on that, the backgrounds, that was the real Jordanaires. Yeah, wow. Singing on that. Yeah. So anyway, it was a special tune.
How many more tunes do you have in the drawer?
Oh, I got all kinds of stuff in the drawer. Songs included.
How many songs have you actually released? Do you know?
Hundreds and hundreds. I don't really know with a career like mine, but I've written thousands of songs.
You have?
Well, that's what I do.
Yeah.
I started young, and I'm old now. Yeah. So you can only imagine how many songs I've got stuck in drawers and in chests and all kinds of things.
Do you think about legacy?
Yeah. That's what I'm doing with this. I think that's what you're here for, to talk about.
I didn't know. So what's important to you in that?
Well, I love the idea of my roots, my musical roots, and involving my family. But I want to be known as someone that cared not only just about myself and about my music and about my family, very spiritual person, but I like to help people, just like my Imagination Library, where we give books away to children from the time they're born, once a month they get a book until they start school. And that's been a wonderful program because my dad couldn't read and write. And so that's what inspired me to do that program and got my dad involved, you know, when it started years and years ago. So now it's become a worldwide thing. We've given way over 200 million books. So I'm proud of that. So that's part of my legacy that I'm proud of. But I'd like to be thought of as a decent human being. I want to be thought of when you think of me when I'm gone. I'd like you to smile, to think, oh, she was funny, or oh, she had a good sense of humor.
Yeah.
You know, even when she was sad, she'd make a joke about it, or you know. So I just want to be. I would just like to be known for what I think I am, which is just a regular person. I always say I'm a workhorse that looks like a show horse, but I work. You know, I work for what I do, and I love my job. Love that I can make a living doing it, but I just hope I leave something good behind for other people to enjoy and to draw from.
How long did you spend planning this?
Well, we've been thinking about it for years, but about 3 years it's taken to really get all of the pieces together and all the storefronts and all the beautiful things like that butterfly.
This is for all your costumes.
Well, yeah, everything in here, I'll explain it to you. This is called behind the seams. And of course, when you get behind the scenes, you get to know everything about all my clothes and how they're done and who the people are that put it all together.
A little bit of your hair.
Oh, well, that's a big one there. I've had it bigger than that in my lifetime.
I know you have.
Everybody said that hair was wearing you. Yeah, well, this is kind of where we plan all our things and keep all the jewelry and where all the, you know, the people working on the costumes and try to figure it all out and plan it all out.
How many wardrobe changes do you have in a year? It must be
heavens,
hundreds.
a year?
Yeah.
It would be hundreds, it really would. And we have different people working on it. Steve Summers is the one that kind of is our creative director and a designer, and he makes sure that all the things are good. Because we have all kinds of different things that we do. Yeah. Everything is like something like this. I'm never casual, not really. So I thought I want to have it a little casual.
Do you ever rewear these, or are they like one?
I do, or take pictures in them. And sometimes if it's something I love, I will have it remade, redone if it fits good and shows the right things in the right places. You know? But yeah, we usually, I would wear something, like if we played something here at Dollywood, like the opening, and I loved it. Yeah. It might be something I would wear on tour. Yeah. If it had all the right sequins and think, oh, I love that. So won't you split the side up a little bit and, you know, plunge it just a little. And,
Everything you wear is thought out, planned, and custom made for you.
Absolutely. Well, the things that have to do with show. I got junk clothes like everybody else. But anyway, they're the ones I'm most comfortable in. But I'm also comfortable in rhinestones. I've lived my life in rhinestones. But yeah, and that's kind of what this is about, behind the scenes. My life in rhinestones is what it's called.
I love this over here. I don't know if you've done this. Have you?
Oh, this is the most fun thing. I don't know if you remember, but all the little paper dolls.
Yeah, well, this is like color forms. We were talking about it.
And kids, you know, they get to kind of dress. Yeah, go ahead and dress.
I can actually dress you.
Dolly. You can dress me, and it sticks on there. And, you know, and then you can get all the hairdos. And
pick out a hairstyle.
Cutest thing, and you can pick out, well, they're all big. Can you get that for me?
I got that one.
My nails are too long. Yeah.
Put that one on.
Oh, you go ahead and dress Dolly.
Okay, come on, Dolly.
I dress her every day.
But we also got to give you We also got to give you a guitar.
Oh, let's see.
Or a banjo.
Which one do you like?
I like this one.
Okay, well, it's your show. Give her a guitar.
Thank you.
Oh, that's perfect. Well, I just think this is the most fun thing, and kids love playing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we may have to merchandise that someday. Make my own paper dolls, Dolly dolls.
Dolly dolls.
Yeah, that's what we can call them. But all of these costumes are things that I've worn on different shows or in TV or on movies.
I love this.
That's one of my rock and roll outfits. When I did my rock album, I had all these rocking clothes, and I loved it.
The boots are fabulous, too.
Oh, yeah, I'm a big shoe person because I'm so short. I love the tall shoes, but I actually loved high heels when I was little before I knew I was even going to be short. Yeah. But through the years, they've served me well.
Some of these heels are a little precarious.
They are. They're at least 5 inches.
Yeah.
Some of them more, some of them 4. But, you know, it depends on what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But I like them high. The older I get, the littler I get, so the taller my shoes get.
This is gorgeous too. I love this.
Oh, that was made years ago by a designer called Tony Chase, who's not with us anymore.
Yeah.
But that was one of the first things I ever had made that was like a custom-made thing in Hollywood. I thought that looked very royal. It's overdone, but
No, it's not.
I'm often overdone. That's my
That's your
and
thing.
my life in ransom. Yeah. Are those bell bottoms
Yeah,
enough for
they're
you?
fabulous. Yeah.
You can hear them ringing from here, can't you? I can. But anyway, these are all, that's a slogan of mine. It's hard to be a diamond in a rhinestone world. That's one of those lines you had asked me about in an interview we did. About some of the lines you, as a writer, you get
come up
excited
with.
about.
Yes.
That was one of them. When I thought, it's hard to be a diamond in a rhinestone world. So, but that was one of those. But
do we
anyway,
got over
these are,
here?
well, these are closed. I did a series on Netflix.
Yeah.
All based on stories from my songs.
Yeah.
And this was the Jolene show we did. And so these were just costumes, from that particular movie.
They gave you wings.
Oh, I know, I got my wings. I'm no angel, I just play one on TV often. I don't know why they think I should play an angel. Because I'm fair, I guess, and
That's great.
white hair.
That's great.
It has to be that. Anyway, I have my own line of cosmetics. And see, these are my perfumes, and I've got a new line of makeup coming out, but these are all the different
You've always wanted to
fragrances.
have that, the makeup line.
I have, and I'm going to have it now.
It looks like you've had the foresight to archive pretty much everything you've had and done over the years.
My best friend, Judy Ogle, she's been my best friend since third grade.
Wow.
And we traveled together. And so she started early on,
Yeah.
saving everything.
Yeah.
Everybody thought she was just a hoarder. But now, then they see that
Yeah.
so much of this, had it not been for Judy, we wouldn't even have it.
Wow.
Yeah, and so different members of my family, my niece, Rebecca Seaver,
Yeah.
she works in my archives. She's my little niece, my namesake.
right.
She's known me since she was a baby.
Yeah.
So she picked up where Judy left off.
Right.
And she's the one that helped put all of these things together.
Yeah.
For the...
Because one of the things I loved in, all of this, but also some of the other artifacts, I was looking in Songteller, that the dry cleaning receipt that you wrote Coat of Many Colors on the
Yes.
back of. I loved that.
I know, I did too. That was when I was with the Porter Wagner show.
Yeah.
And I just remember this coming to my mind on the
Yeah.
bus. We were traveling on his bus at
Yeah.
that time. And so he was walking through, he just picked up his costumes at the cleaner.
Yeah.
And we were going on tour. And I just saw that tag and I had nothing to write on, and I just grabbed that tag off his clothes, and I started writing Coat of Many Colors. And then later he gave that to me.
So he'd kept it.
He had kept it.
Yeah.
And then he gave it to me later.
Wow, that's just,
Yeah.
I love that.
did
You said something else in the book that really struck me. You said, as a songwriter, I have to leave myself wide open. I suffer a lot because I am open so much. I heard a lot. I wanted to talk to you about that.
Well, how much hurt do you want me to tell you?
You can tell me all the hurt you want.
No, I just mean in order to
Yeah.
be a songwriter,
Yeah.
you have to leave your heart open
Yeah.
and your mind open, because
That means you've got to feel all
you
that
have
stuff.
to feel it.
Yeah.
Well, either that or you just do feel it, and that's why you write songs.
Yeah.
That could go either way, I guess.
Yeah.
But of course, like I had told you earlier, is that I not only write for myself, I hurt for other people as well. Like say if I have a friend or a sister
Yeah.
going through a breakup or a heartache, if they can't write it,
Yeah.
I write it, and then it's therapy for them.
Right.
And they love it, and then they got, I made something out of it.
Is that the way you have processed your feelings and emotions, you think, from the beginning?
Yes, I think so, because when you grow up, as I mentioned, in a big house, there's a lot of racket, a lot of noise.
Yeah.
You have to make your own space. You have to find your own place.
Yeah.
And then you get used to that place, and you love that place.
Yeah.
And that's where you can go and nobody else can go.
Right.
And you find your peace there, and you find all the things that you need.
Yeah.
And it's where all the tools are that you need to work with.
Right. What has music meant to you?
Everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Music is the way I express everything that I feel,
Yeah.
everything I know.
Yeah.
And if it had not been for a song, none of this would be here.
Right.
Everything began with a song for me.
Yeah.
You've decided to weigh in. How come?
Well, I think politics affects all of our lives, and we're all citizens. We all have a stake in what happens in this country. We pay taxes here. Our kids are growing up here, going to schools here, and so we all have a stake in what happens here. And I don't want to sit out. I want to make sure that my voice is heard, but also that I lift up other voices and make sure they're heard too. So not only am I here myself, But I spend a lot of my time and energy going around the country talking to people in communities. We've been in Louisiana recently, in Detroit, in Cleveland, listening to their concerns, thinking about the issues that matter the most to them and how we can be helpful. And hopefully our politicians are doing the same thing.
I heard someone the other day describe Kamala Harris as famous and yet not well known, meaning that they don't know all the details of her biography, maybe not all the details of what she believes. So for people in that category, just getting to know her, you've endorsed her. Why? What do you like about her?
Well, I live in California, so I've gotten to watch her run for election multiple times, gotten to support her in those elections, and seen how smart and charismatic and empathetic and how ready she is for this. You know, being vice president is, it's a tough job because you're kind of like the understudy and you don't necessarily get a lot of attention, but she's in all these meetings where they're meeting with foreign dignitaries, they're talking about policy that's going to affect everyone, and so she's through all these different experiences as district attorney, as attorney general, as senator, and then vice president, she's prepared herself for this role. She is eminently qualified to be president, and then she also has the right character traits, I think, to be a great president, which means she cares about people's lives, wants government to work for people and improve their lives, and she really got into her original role as district attorney because she cared about people and wanted to provide safety and protection for them and do what she could to make her community safer.
You know, after Joe Biden gave his speech on Monday night, there was a moment, I think a lot of people at this point, it was way after midnight, may not have been awake, but she was on stage with Joe Biden and they had an emotional exchange. They hugged, he kissed her. And there was a real connection there. As someone who's been close to her, who knows her a lot better than most people, what is she like as a human being, as a person?
I think she cares so much about other people, and whenever you talk to her, she's always willing to give advice. She's always giving great hugs and really sees you and pays attention to you. And I think we need politicians like that, people who actually care about the people they're interacting with and they're representing and caring about making other people's lives better and not just in it for themselves.
Yeah. You're not the only celebrity that's going to be in the United Center in the next few days. I've seen quite a few. Democrats seem to do a heck of a lot better with the kind of famous person vote. Fair to say.
Well, I think the creative community, I don't think of us as just being famous. I think we're all creatives. And I think being a creative person makes you have kind of a more liberal disposition. You are more open, and you don't put a lot of boundaries and barriers around issues like race and sexuality and gender expression. And so I think the Democratic Party, I think, is just a more hospitable home for creative people because we're just liberal by disposition. We care about freedom. We care about being open, and the other party not so open and freedom loving.
You touch on there, I think, just barely, but you get over the question of policy. If there are one or two or three areas of policy that say this is why I'm a Democrat and this is why I support Kamala Harris, what are they?
Well, I grew up in Ohio, and I grew up in a UAW family. My father built trucks for a living, so people look at me now and they see the glamour and the celebrity, but I grew up in a blue-collar family in a blue-collar town in Ohio, and from my experience through the years, the Democratic Party has cared more about those types of families, making sure life is better for workers, people who are struggling to stay in the middle class, struggling to get into the middle class, and that means caring about housing costs, caring about Social Security, caring about a safety net that protects people and make sure their children have an opportunity to grow up and have opportunity and thrive in this country. And I just have seen the Democratic Party over the years be more concerned about that and when they're at their best. And that's why I tend to vote for Democratic politicians.
You know, the fact that Democrats seem to do better with creatives, with celebrities, it cuts both ways.
Sure. On
On the one hand, it creates a lot of interest, particularly among young people. But on the other hand, it allows Republicans to look at the party and say it's the party of coastal elites.
It's just Hollywood elites. I understand.
It's the party of Hollywood. It doesn't care about you and your life. Everyday America is the phrase you hear.
Yeah, but then they're represented by a guy who grew up with a silver spoon in his mouth, who was gifted a real estate company, grew up in New York City, and is only famous because he was on national television playing a businessman. So, you know, it doesn't ring very true for them to accuse us of being the Hollywood elites. I'm from Springfield, Ohio. I grew up in a blue-collar family. I would not even comprehend the kind of upbringing someone like Donald Trump had.
But, you know, politics is not always rational. People are people. People are emotional. They come to decisions for all kinds of reasons. Sometimes they're starting in a good place. Usually they are. It doesn't mean they're going to end up where you end up. What convinces you, as John Legend, that the celebrity support for the Democrats and for Kamala Harris is a benefits Democrat, actually helps?
I think it can go both ways, like you said, but I think it's important for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz to focus on the people. Don't focus on us. Go out there, talk to the people, listen to their concerns, and you can tell from the policy pronouncements that Vice President Harris put out last week talking about the economy. She's not doing that for me. She's doing that for everyday Americans. And that's what she needs to keep her eye on and keep her ear to, is the concerns of everyday Americans. And as long as she's doing that, going out and listening, and then proposing policies like, you know, benefits for first-time housing buyers, benefits for folks with children who are struggling to raise their kids. That's what great leaders do, and that's what great politicians do, is listen to the people and propose policies that will actually improve people's lives. Don't worry about me. Don't worry about what I need. Worry about all those folks around the country who are the version of me growing up in Springfield, Ohio, and families like ours.
But take your neighbors, say, in Springfield, Ohio, in that working class community. When they hear that a major recording artist has endorsed a candidate, do you think that makes a difference in how they vote?
I think for a lot of people it doesn't. For some it might, but I think the job of the campaign is to go out there and press the flesh, talk to the people, listen to their concerns, and deliver for them. And so what's going to make a bigger difference is those volunteers out in their community, people who live down the street from them going to canvass. And what I've loved about what's happened with the Kamala Harris campaign is the volunteering has gone way up. And so you've got people on the ground out there speaking for the campaign.
Well, this is so interesting, because what I hear you saying is that you're not a political scientist. You're not necessarily sure if celebrity support helps or hurts Democrats, but just John Legend as a person cares about politics.
Sure.
And so that's why you're involved.
I do care, and some of my fellow artists and actors don't care, and they don't spend a lot of energy focused on it. But I do care, so I go out there and try to do what I can to make a difference. But I'm not convinced that me saying I'm for Kamala Harris is going to make anyone change their mind. But I do believe that I'm a citizen too, and I'm going to speak out about things I care about.
You know, we had Jamie Harrison, who's the chairperson of the Democratic National Committee. You know Jamie, okay. And I pointed out to Jamie that we've been hearing Beyonce on the speakers, they're testing out the audio. And you see a lot of people wearing kind of Beyonce hats, a sash, Cowboy Kamala. It raises the question. Of whether Beyonce herself will be here.
We all have questions. I don't have any answers, though.
I would think you might have answers.
I don't have answers.
You know a lot of people. You know.
I wish I knew. I wish I could tell you.
I mean,
I still wouldn't tell you, but I wish I could.
You wish you could? Okay, all right. So this is an honest no. Any other potential surprises?
I don't know, man. I don't know what's going to happen, but
you're telling me you don't have a text message on your phone right now from someone like, "Hey, I happen to be in Chicago," and you're like, "No way, what's going on?"
I know I have a show tonight, and I'm excited for that, but I have no idea who's going to be performing on the convention stage.
What do you think the winning argument is in closing here for the Democrats in 2024?
Well, I think they've been making it, is that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz care about people like you. They care about ordinary Americans, and they want to make life better for ordinary Americans. And their opponent cares about enriching himself and his other rich friends, and the difference is very clear.
last question. It's sort of academic, but it's important question of whether people are convinced by celebrity endorsements. USA Today put out a poll earlier this year and found that they actually don't make a difference, with one exception.
Oh, what's the exception?
The
John Legend.
The Obamas have some impact.
Well, they're not celebrities. They've become celebrities, but their roots are in politics. And Barack Obama's roots are in community organizing, representing the people in this community here in Chicago, and then becoming a senator representing the state of Illinois. And so you can call him a celebrity now, but he's a politician, and he's done the work, you know? He's gone out there, campaigned, sat in living rooms in Iowa and listened to people's concerns, and then got elected.
Yeah.
So it's different.